Welcome back to my channel. This is wendirenay. I'm so excited to have you. Man, this guest coming on here, I can't wait for you guys to meet Jill. Jill McMillan is coming to us after being born and raised. She's been out of the organization for 12 years, and her story, I'm telling you, the way that she tells it is, you'll probably see me cry in this video because that's what I do. I'm a crier. I cry about things. Her story resonated with me so much, but most importantly, it resonated with me because I know so many of your stories personally, and that is why I could not wait to get her video out there. An author, she's a mom, such an interesting person that I'm really excited. So you know what? Enough of the intro. Let's go. Okay, a little bit of an intro. Before we begin, I want to thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and sharing my videos. It just shows that there is hope and health and wellness on the other side of indoctrination, high control religion, and narcissistic abuse. I said that really fast, narcissistic abuse. Be sure to check out our TikTok channel where we have really interesting conversations in the comments, and you can follow me on Instagram where I kind of vlog and I open up my heart and soul. Don't forget to hit that bell at the top of your YouTube because that means every time I post a video, you will get notified. Anyway, so without further ado, let's go. Jill McMillan, it is so awesome to have you on my show. Thank you so much for coming forward and wanting to tell your story about your experience in the JWs. So yeah, let's have at it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your overall background is in this organization.
Thank you so much for having me. I love watching your videos.
Thank you.
I have not been associated with the Jehovah's Witness organization for 12 years. I was born into a family where my dad was an elder up until I was about 10 or 11 years old, and really kind of had a very Pollyanna world. My parents were, it was just a happy little home and we were having a good time. And as far as my innocent brain was concerned, church was about, I call it church now because I hate that we weren't allowed to call it church back
I know,
then.
right? Call it what you want. Yeah.
But church was fun and positive. We lived in kind of a small town in Southern California, and it was very much family and everything was about paradise. So it was pretty Pollyanna. And then my dad, as an elder, ended up cheating on my mom and running off with that person and getting disfellowshipped. And the disfellowshipping of my dad really shifted everything in my world, not to mention my parents getting divorced. As anybody knows, if who have parents that got divorced, it's very impactful. But the key there, as far as the organization was concerned, is, we're taught we don't belong to the world, stay away from the world. Then you go to this place that is your safe haven. And all of a sudden, because my dad was disfellowshipped and we were such kind of like the center of the hall family, it was like being disfellowshipped. It was like
people are going to catch it
all
from
of a sudden, nobody wanted to talk to us. It was really, really weird. And so I don't belong at school, because I can't participate and I can't play with the kids after school. And at the hall, all of a sudden, these people that felt so close were like like scattering, disappearing before our eye. And it affected all of us. I have 3 siblings, 2 that are still very, very much witnesses, and one that's not. The one that's not left when she was like when my dad left. So she doesn't get the shunning like I did. So that's another weird part of the whole thing. It's like I didn't leave until I was 46, stayed in it for a really long time. My family members kind of maintain a relationship with her, even though she's been a quote unquote worldly person since she was a little kid. But when I made the choice, it's like, oh, she knows better. You didn't know any better. You were too young. But she knows better.
Was she baptized though?
She was baptized at 11.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't get baptized till I was 14, but it counts because I say, and most importantly, I mean, what really created the shunning is, and I hate saying anything negative about my mom. If you read my book or watch my videos that showcase my book, you'll find I just think the world of my mom. She's an amazing human, but she is a very devout witness and she takes it so seriously. So when I finally had the guts to tell her that I really didn't believe it because she kept kind of checking in on me.
Mhm. Right.
um, she pressed me for answers. She pretty much put my back up against the wall. I mean, I said, "You're not going to like the answers. Please don't ask me." And at the end of that conversation, she said, "Well, then you're an apostate." And I don't even remember all the things. I was, on forums and watching videos and stuff. This is 12 years ago, but there wasn't as much stuff out there as there is now. But she said I was apostate, and apparently she told other people that I was apostate, plus the fact that I just completely disappeared off the scene. But once that happened, I decided to move away, because me and my kids, because my kids at that time were like 10 and 14, their whole world was being kind of shattered at that moment. My 14-year-old was happy as a clam because she was like ready to go out and party with worldly people, but they lost all their friends, their whole world, and then they lost their grandma too, because
Wow.
she
Yes.
thought it was, in her words, too awkward to try to work out talking to them and hanging out with them, because she'd have to interact with me. So it was pretty
Never
brutal.
mind the fact that you and your kids are a package deal anyway. So to
Exactly. Oh,
shun you and
my kids protect me. They're like, "Hey,
yes,
somebody's
it's
shunning
interesting
you."
how that happens, right? My kids pick
Yes.
up on it. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That must have been very difficult for all of you at one time.
Well, that's another thing that was really an interesting part of it, because so much was happening right
Mhm.
very soon after we faded. I ended up getting divorced. I was married for 25 years. He kind of faded when I faded. It's all in the book, but sorry
It
if I'm giving you too much information. But
No, this is what we do here. Yes. I already am
but
thinking of at least 4 or 5 people who have the same exact story as you so far. This is what so many guests may not realize, that everything you say just has so much impact. It really
oh
does.
yeah.
Continue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Where I was going with that is that once we stopped being around any witnesses, and
Mhm.
whether we were avoiding them because we didn't want awkward questions, or because we had family members that were already hard shunning us, it didn't really hit for a long time. It really didn't like give you the 1-2 punch for a long time, because so much of our lives were changing. It's like getting used to not being witnesses as a married person,
Mhm.
and then kind of helping the kids kind of ease into that life. When I got divorced, that was huge. I was married to my best friend. We had a really, really amazing relationship. But I changed. I changed so much. I couldn't stay married anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
So I moved away. I took the kids, I moved away. Their dad was okay with that. I moved to a different state up in Oregon. My dad, who had been disfellowshipped when I was a little kid, lived up there. And I actually moved right next door to him for a little while to like assimilate, like, okay, we got family here.
Mhm.
But it was amazing how the pain of the shunning would come in these waves, where you think, okay, I really worked through this. I cried, I screamed, I wrote, really have been processing this. And because it really, that leaving the organization tends to make us very introspective. And so you really do. I went to therapy, I wrote my book, but amazing how you still get the waves this many years out. The catalyst for me doing the YouTube video was my mom had a stroke a few months ago. And even with that, even with struggling to communicate, huge impact of that, because the rules kind of, oh, someone's in the hospital or someone could die or life-threatening situation, then the rules kind of ease, and okay, the black sheep can come in for a second, for a
Right.
minute.
Right. Right.
And I had some incredibly emotional situations at hospitals, seeing my brothers, actually having my mom react emotionally to me when she really couldn't communicate, but like grab my hands and hold them so tight. I mean, after not speaking to her pretty much for 12 years, it was, man, man, was it emotional. It was amazing because, and we're swimming in these waters that are uncharted, because trying to mourn people that are not dead, that can come back in our lives because of so many different circumstances, it can throw you for a loop, even when you've done so much therapy and processing and everything else. It just, how can this come around and hurt me again? This can't be. It's crazy.
We re-traumatize ourselves. The trauma never leaves us. It's just reframed until we come face to face with it again. And then it's almost like we're placed back in that situation again. And sure, we may be healed in the moment, but nostalgia and joy, those things that we know that we no longer are part of, those things can sometimes be very, very powerful. That's the whole point of emotional control. That is one of the mitigating factors in high control religion, is the way that it wraps hold of our hearts. And that's what they do. That is the power that emotional control has over us. Like, if I came back and complied, I could be part of their lives. I can have this, right? That's what they want us to feel.
Right. They have the power. They take away our most cherished things in life, our family, the people we love. Last year, my dad passed away. And so, I really learned what it's like to have a parent die versus have a parent not be in my life and yet have them exist. One is not more devastating than the other, to be honest. I always go back to the story of Jehovah asking Abraham to sacrifice his son.
Yeah.
And I asked my mom that question when I was in my 20s, and I was, auxiliary pioneering on and off, and I was, pretty gung-ho and did unassigned territory, etc.
You
I
lived the
asked my
life,
mom
girl.
that question.
Yeah.
I'm like, if Jehovah asked you to kill one of us, your kids, would you do that? And it's just like the classic JW, I don't know how to articulate. The reasoning just is so silly and sidesteps the real question always. It never kind of just meets the question head on. Would you really do that? And the reality is, she didn't, take a dagger like in the
But
Bible
she cut
story.
you out of her life. That's exactly right. Yes.
She did. And as I say that, I go back to this because, my number one thing in life, I'm all about love. I like to be kind and compassionate. And I'm like, I stayed in it for 46 years, even though I was fighting inside myself for, at least 30 of those years.
Really? So you were 11 when your dad got his fellowship, or what was it for you that said, I can't pretend anymore? It sounds like you were Pimo for a while too.
Sort of. I remember when I was still married saying to my husband, let's just give up, because we were very weak. We were very weak for a really long time.
Wait a minute. Hold on here.
Lingo.
You were not weak. JWs would call it
right.
Weak,
my ex used to call it flaky witnesses. We had become flaky witnesses.
You were the family who would come when the CO was around, or you were the family who was not late
that
for
bad.
everyone? Oh.
Not that bad.
Because I ended up there too.
But our Starbucks breaks started really soon after we hit the first store.
You're counting your time. Yes. Okay. Find someone in the group who's not baptized. Who's not baptized? Okay. Yeah. Time started. Got it. Okay. I'm with you.
Okay. So being that way, and even though we were considered, that we were in an area that was very affluent, that everybody had money and everybody partied like crazy. And our house was one of the main party places, and we were having a good time. We were going on trips, always drinking like fish and dancing and having a good time with a lot of other JWs that all were doing the same thing, including elders. That lifestyle was kind of eroding. It made me feel so guilty. And I would kind of go back and forth, like, I got to study more. I got to go out and service more. My kids are not going to be in the what am I what am I going to do if I don't do this good enough? And then I'd get to the point where I thought, kind of be easier to just give up because I don't think I'm going to make it anyway.
Oh my
The
gosh.
catalyst for me, though, the true, like my daughter, she was like 12 or 13. She wrote me a letter and said she didn't want to be a witness. She, we're really close, why are you handing me a letter right now? This is crazy. And she's like, I don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Was she
And
baptized at the time?
no. As a matter of fact,
Oh my
I
goodness.
knew inside myself, I would never allow my kids to go in that back room with anybody ever. It was
Oh
never
my God.
happening.
You're talking to my soul right now. And as many times that I had been in that back room, my mother just kind of was like, well, yeah, sure. You're gonna go through this by yourself. And now I have two kids and I'm like, I could never imagine that. I am with
No
you.
way. So when she gave me the letter, my first instinct was just, it kind of had a flashback to my own adolescence, my own teenage years, me telling my mom I didn't want to be a witness. I was scared. And so got all the literature and I'm like, let's read, let's study. And my daughter's a huge reader. So I'm like, read this book and read that book. This is about all the other religions and you're going to find the truth. And honestly, it wasn't very long after that. It was like a culmination of a lot of things. The whole party group that we were in, one of our best buddies, who his kids were best buddies with my kids, he became an elder and my kids were invited to go skating. And at the time, my husband and I had just separated. People knew we were separated, but they didn't know why. My friends were telling me you should talk to the elders to get help. And I'm like, yeah, right.
What are they gonna do?
I know how that's going to work. So anyway, I got a phone call from some sister I barely knew. And she said, I'm supposed to be taking all the kids to the skating party tonight, but so-and-so says your kids can't go because they're bad association. Literally when she said it, a cross between tears shooting out of my eyeballs and steam coming out of my ears for anger and hurt. And this was somebody we were really close to. And he literally got appointed an elder like the week before. And I thought,
Why am I not surprised?
how are you getting in your house with your head that big?
Why am I not surprised that this is, and it's sad that this is not shocking at all.
My kids were uninvited to their party. And that moment was like, I'm done. I've seen it over and over. It was a culmination of so much stuff I had seen since I was 11 years old that was so unjust, unfair, inappropriate. There was a lot of really awesome elders that I knew over my JW career. But I had seen so much imbalance, things where you're constantly scratching your head going, they're appointed by Holy Spirit. How can they behave this unfairly, unjustly, slimy, creepy, etc., cruelly?
We were in the same congregations. It's amazing what happens when your kids step in. My son was a mitigating factor in waking me up. When you come at the kids, when you poke that hive, like you can come at me, right? The elders can bypass me and go right to my spouse, but you come at my kids, oh, you better run.
Yep. Mama
That's
bear.
what happens to us. We'll become mama bears for real.
Yeah.
So for you, I can't imagine what that must have felt like for you, for your daughter, having such a close relationship, giving you that letter.
Yes.
What was that like for you, for her to open up to you through a letter? Because you know what that took for her to write that. It's almost like she was weighing the consequences in her head at such a young age.
I think she wanted to date and she wanted to go to parties she was getting invited to. She's a beautiful girl and she was getting a lot of attention and, hard to resist all that. And besides being scared and like shoving all the literature at her and telling her, oh, you'll believe it if you just read enough. Make myself sick reflecting on that memory.
No, you did your best with what you had at the time.
Yeah, but at the same time, it reminded me because I had one parent that was disfellowshipped and not a witness, and I had the other one that was. And so I always felt divided. I always felt, as a matter of fact, maybe this means something to somebody, because I always felt that because my dad was bad, according to witnesses. My dad was having a good time in the 70s. He was sex, drugs, rock and roll, have fun.
He
So
sounds like a good
it was
time.
very, very, very easy to paint him as bad. It's like, of course we don't want to be worldly. Look what worldly people do. So easy to kind of just paint him as this bad person. So what happened in my mind, I don't know if other people have this experience. I thought, I'm half bad. I can see my dad's eyes when I look in the mirror. I'm half my dad, so I'm probably bad. So even though my mom was like, she was the one I lived with, she was the one taking us to meetings, studying with us, et cetera, et cetera. I always kind of thought, well, I do kind of want to try smoking a cigarette. I do want to go out with this guy at school. I do want to, ask a worldly guy to the dance that I'm not allowed to go to, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that sounds really small, because it's funny, because when I reflected on my book, doing my videos and everything, I thought it sounds like I was just boy crazy most of my life. But that was an important thing for me, because, when you're in the JW world, they keep you in this box. These are the people that you're allowed to have feelings for.
Yep.
And you're seeing so much kind of messed up stuff within that organization. And you're thinking, these are my choices. And
Well,
so
not only
that
that,
made
but
me,
to your point, you said your natural inclination to want to be involved with very normal rites of passage. You concluded that you must be half bad because your father was disfellowshipped. It's just amazing to me how those things are installed in us. They'll say sin is normal. We're born with sin, but also sin is frowned upon. Well, which is it? So for you to
yes.
sit there and think you're half bad, half good as a young child and have your father paint, and I wonder, because my father was never a witness, but my mother was very much queen bee of the kingdom hall, very the hard one who would beat her kids with the Bible type of Jehovah's Witness mom. And interestingly, I didn't do it intentionally, but I kind of kept him at arm's length. Was that a similar experience for you to
With my
not come
dad,
around? Yeah, yeah.
well, it was interesting, because we only went every other weekend to his house.
Mm-hmm.
My sister lived with
Same.
him because she wanted to not be a witness, and she wanted all
I
those
know my
freedoms.
brother did the same.
But it was almost a little bit scary to my young mind, because they partied, and it felt so the opposite of everything that I had learned my
Right,
whole entire existence. So
right.
I was scared of it. So I kept wanting to tiptoe into it and everything. Then when I got into my teenage years, I wanted to go to his house as much as possible, because it represented freedom and double life a little bit and stuff. And then as an adult, I hid when I went to see my dad, because he lived in a different state. And if I told anybody that I was going to visit him, you know, family members, congregation members, friends, wasn't your dad disfellowship? Why are you going to see him? That's something that is just incredible to me, why people can't recognize that this is a cult. Because when a so-called religion does not allow you to be a true friend or be a loyal family member, I mean, there's two big giant red flags right there. So I kept my dad kind of hidden, my relationship with him. We were very close. By the time I I left and everything, we were extremely close for the time that I was a witness. The older I got, the more I thought, well, I'm just not telling anybody I'm going up there. I'm going because I wanted to see him, but I didn't see him as much as I would have liked to.
If you go back to my stories, 25 years, I didn't know my brother because he decided he didn't want to be a witness. But what you said is so interesting because yes, as you get older, you tend to not really feel as the way you did with regard to have to hiding your relationship with your father. But it's really interesting that we are programmed to think that we even have to, that we even have to hide people who believe differently than we do, that there's people who just simply don't believe it anymore. And then somehow, if somebody knew that you were with your dad, that makes you bad too. It's just so much in the eyes of a young person. And we're programmed to worry so much about what people are thinking. I can't
Mhm.
tell you how many people watching this video are literally feeling your story right now. And I only
Okay.
know this because of the conversations I'm having behind the scenes. So everything you're saying, it's almost like it's copy and pasted. Our lives are lather, rinse, repeat in everything that we're dealing with. There are people in our audience whose grown children are shunning them, whose parents are shunning them. It is a complete disaster, and nobody is paying attention to the fact that this is a cult except for people who have experienced this. And even then, the
Yes.
organization is saying, now that you've left, once you left and you explain things to your children, what did that look like for you, and how did you come out of this phase of anger and resentment and trauma?
Time for sure. I mean, Winston Churchill, when you're going through hell, keep going. There was times when it was really, really hard and you just keep going. I mentioned before therapy. I am really into synchronicity and the magic of the universe. The first
Yes, me too.
therapist that I found, I said, well, I just got to get this out in the open, and I told her I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, and she said, oh, so did I. And I was like, oh, thank you. It was amazing. So therapy, living my life in honesty. I mean, that's what also made me end up leaving my marriage, because even though this person was my best friend, even though I'll love him forever, we didn't look at anything the same anymore. And I now could be true to who I was, and being true to who I wasn't being this person's partner. And then really busy raising my kids, but writing my book was key. And then also I always worry about getting into this. It cracks me up because of my book. I feel like I really kind of tiptoed around it, but I'm really into the metaphysical. I started taking meditation classes and sixth sense classes. And, so I got really involved with that, and I love it.
You're in good company. You're talking to a highly intuitive empath who wasn't until I left JWs that I stepped into those gifts that I thought were making me a faithless, good for nothing. I was completely unworthy. All of my intuition was pushed down. I would have feelings about people. I would pick up on energies, and that was just, there was always something wrong with me. So you're in good company with the metaphysical aspects. I love it.
Right on. Well, I mean, one of the key things that really was kind of like a breaking moment for me was the Sixth Sense class that I attended weekly was like my favorite day of the week. It was like I was in my happy place when I was there. I decided to get a reading from the teacher who I really loved before the class. Reading went great. She told me a bunch of fun stuff, really resonated, and wow, this is awesome. But then I said, the one thing that's killing me is my mom. I was really, really close to my mom, and I can't believe, is this ever going to change? Is this going to, because I kind of felt like my teacher, the lady doing my reading, I felt like she was tapping into my grandma, my mom's mom. And so I'm like, can you ask my grandma, is my mom ever going to talk to me? Is this ever going to be okay? And she looked at me dead in the eye and said, let go of it. And I was furious. I was like, you don't understand. How do you let go of someone that important in your life? This person that I love and cherish and revere. How do I let go of it? And then I left, and I'm like, I'm not going to class. I was too mad. And I went shopping. I was doing some work. I do interior design. And so I was buying something in a store, and I'm standing in line at Home Goods. And I mean, I was just in tears. And I put everything down, ran to my car, and just cried the hardest I've ever cried in my life. And I'm like, she's right. If I can't let go of this, I'm gonna, it's like the rejection is just going to keep coming at me and hitting me, and the mourning and the loss and everything. It's just going to keep coming, and it does keep coming, but it lessens when you face it. So just hearing some hard words like, sometimes you got to just let go of it and move on and go, okay, what's good in life? It's like you were talking about, people have various people in their family that shun them. Some people lose everybody. So I started counting my blessings. I didn't let myself focus on it. Not that when I needed to cry, because sometimes I think it's important when something's really hurting you and crushing you, really dig into that and feel it and cry it out and then get to the other side. But it was at that stage, it was just really important for me to hear, I don't want to say give up hope, but when we're clinging to a hope that we can see with our, JW history, there's not a lot of chance of people waking up to that. A lot of people are now more than ever before, but I had to kind of just come to terms with, she's not going to I went through phases where I tried to send her letters every month. I tried to call her and she would act like, is someone dying? Why are you calling me?
But what you're describing is acceptance.
Totally.
Acceptance is a gift we give to ourselves. It's not easy to accept that you're grieving the loss of people that are still alive. When you accept things, you're able to step into another viewpoint. You're kind of zooming out and looking at the situation objectively. And that's what we're trying to help people do. It's just, yeah, something you said it resonated with me so much, because I do see so many people who are persistently reaching out to their family members, and that's all part of the grief. That's all part of the trauma. And
Yep.
so for you to get to that point, because you can still love someone and not have them in your life, you can still forgive someone, or maybe even using empathy and seeing these people as victims as well, sometimes can also be helpful in the path to getting to acceptance. What was that like for you when you finally accepted it?
It was really sad at times, but it was kind of empowering. One of the things I'm really big on trying to create my own rituals and
Mhm.
traditions and stuff. And one of the things that I did the next day after she told me let go is go out in the backyard, light a candle, gathered all the writing, because I love writing and everything. Even the letter that told my mom I wasn't going to be a witness and everything. I gathered all the writing, put it in the fire pit, lit it. And that was another thing that was a really weird thing for me to wrap my head around. My teacher said, pray to the universe to take this pain from you. And I'm like, that's stupid. Why would you pray to the universe?
You have no idea
But
how
I
much
did
you're
it.
speaking to my soul right now. I have a pile in my van right now of stuff to burn. Like I can't even begin. This is you coming on my channel right now. And for all of you viewers out there, I'm telling you, this is a universe thing. Believe it, don't believe it, but I'm telling you, this is a thing.
It was this quiet, barely breezy day, and the paper bits were just like swirling up and around me. And I literally was like, I could feel the grief kind of lift. I always feel like it's intention. My intention was, I need you to take, universe, whatever energy is out there, I need you to bear some of this grief for me. I need to let go of it because I can't carry it every day. I got to raise my kids and I got to work and I got to move and I got to. And so that intention, that ceremony, whatever it was huge. And so that kind of schooled me on create another intention, create another ritual, create another ceremony when I need it. And it could have to do with sitting under the full moon and, whatever. It could be sitting at the beach, find ways of, letting go. It wasn't everyday suffering by any means, because for me, it's like as a grown person, my parent wasn't in my life every day.
Right.
But it was that, like, something happens with your kids or something amazing happens and you can't share it. You can't hear that voice. You can't laugh with that person, just so many things. And so it wasn't like every day, but to me, I feel like if I wasn't conscientious about processing when I got anger or I got really sad, then it would be affecting me every day unconsciously. I have a story in my book that I was newly divorced. I was driving in my car. I wasn't thinking about my mom. I wasn't thinking about all my friends that I had lost. I wasn't thinking about my divorce, nothing. And I was driving down the road to my store that I had, and I started screaming and shaking so loud, like from my toes, like screams that I never knew I had within me. My throat was sore for 3 days afterwards. And I was shaking and I had to yank my car to the side of the road and screaming, I want my mom. I want my mommy. Screaming. And honestly, it wasn't the last time it happened either. Honestly, I'm not that kind of person. I'm pretty chill and calm person. And it came out of nowhere. But it really kind of let me know, okay, I needed to get some shattered shit out of me. And it got out that moment.
Yeah.
And I need to look at this when I need to look at this. Like, don't ignore it when it's eating away at you, even when you're busy with your kids and your work and your life and everything. You got to look at it and treat it. I would say go back into therapy if I was, struggling too much, write some more, do another ceremony or create a new ritual. Just make sure I'm not kind of ignoring what's truly going on.
That's such a beautiful point too. because that was just a release for you. And the more we push things down, sometimes they come up even louder when we keep pushing them down.
Like when I first left, I played golf and tennis several times a week. I was working, I had teenage kids, and I was busy, too busy to kind of make friends. And so I didn't. I would fill that space with busyness, and the emptiness might have shown up on Friday and Saturday night when I wasn't partying with my friends and stuff. But I would say it took a really long time to kind of create a new tribe. And my tribe is very tiny. And I'm okay with that, but I have to work at being open, because I think that that's something that happens is, I had a lot of really good girlfriends that I thought would be friends for life, into the paradise.
I'm interested in your perspective because there are very different perspectives that I do hear. Some
Yes.
people are ready and willing and opening up. Some people create communities before they leave. Some people have an exit plan. Some people get
Yes.
strategic in their exit plans. And some people are forced out, as was the case with you, with your mom demanding answers. And I'm finding that that's happening now too, where if someone is not really showing up to their Zoom, can you imagine Zoom meetings? Oh my gosh. If someone is showing up to Zoom meetings or not showing up, they're being forced into this, tell me what's going on. Tell me why you're not going. Oh, you don't believe it anymore? Like they're forced into admitting something that they themselves may not have reconciled yet, that they're still kind of figuring out what's going on. And I'm noticing that's happening too, is they're demanding answers out of people now.
It's so true. Yeah. And they don't realize that they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing that, because you force
Of
that
course
person's
not.
hand, and then, then
Yeah.
you lose them, because that's what my mom ultimately did with me. She didn't have to do that. Matter of fact, the letter that I wrote that said, "I'm sorry, I don't believe it anymore. I'm not going to pretend. I don't know how." She brought it to the elders and they, what they told her? They said, "That's personal. You do whatever you think you should do." I feel like it kind of speaks to when people have that need to. My mom just has that personality. She wants to be the A student. She wants to be the teacher's pet. She wants Jehovah to be happy with her, and she wants to do it all right. It's like she didn't want to fail this test. And so I feel like, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. It's like people that are they don't realize when they're trying to get those answers out of those of us that are slipping away or whatever, they're kind of killing that relationship.
Well, it also ignites our black and white thinking. It ignites our all or nothing. It's our if then thinking. If I say this, there's consequences to that. If I admit to this, then I'm going to have to do that. When you're figuring out that this is not the truth for you, your immediate default response is, I'm going to lose everyone. I'm going to get this fellowship. But even if you have any doubt, doubt is marketed as lack of faith. Doubt is marketed as not doing enough spiritually, when really all doubt is our natural born tendencies to second guess things and use critical thinking, something we were never encouraged to do. It automatically is our default mechanism that something is wrong with me. That's what we dealt with. Your whole life is centered around everything you do, think, say, breathe is judged. And if it's not in compliance with groupthink, hence it being a cult, then there's something wrong with us. That's our default. I'm sure that when your daughter wrote that letter, you must have seen yourself in her when that happened.
Oh yeah. But it wasn't till many, many years later that I recognized exactly what you're talking about, the black and white thinking. Even long after not going to meetings or seeing any witness people in my life anymore, I still had to kind of wake up to that idea of black and white, right or wrong, pick a side, dig your heels in. I'm a big believer in non-belief. I think that we should, for me, and I celebrate anybody if they have a belief or whatever, but I feel it gets you into the weeds. Once you dig your heels in on anything, I feel like if you can be like, even when somebody tells you something you completely disagree with, just that's interesting. I'm gonna look at that.
Approaching life with a childlike curiosity, basically.
Yes. And that's a long trip away from a world that told us having the truth, having the answers was everything. That was the most valuable, most important thing. And to get to the place where it's like, I'm cool with not having the answers. I write about the fact that if it feels loving and peaceful and safe, then I welcome it,
Yeah,
So
well, we talk a lot about not right versus wrong, or we talk more healthy versus unhealthy, and changing out those hard, fast absolutions, those terms that really set us apart from being curious. I find it interesting that you sound like, since leaving, that you are a much more agreeable, peaceable, understanding, compassionate individual. And that's exactly what Jehovah's Witnesses market themselves to be. And I'm like, wait a minute. I feel like we're those things on the outside of high control religion. And it's funny how
So
that
true.
works, isn't it? Yeah.
So true.
When people leave, the first question that elders or family members tend to ask is, well, where are you going to go? What are you going to believe? And they can't wrap their mind around that. Could it be that I'm just actually looking forward to sleeping in on a Sunday? Or I'm just kind of, right? Or I kind
Watching
of
the
like the fact that,
cartoons.
right. Oh, yeah, the cartoons. Could it be that many people are just content not knowing what is going to happen? That's how I live my life. Like, I don't know. It's kind of an adventure. It's not choose your hard, choose your tribulation. I don't know. Today's going to be an adventure and we'll figure it out.
And maybe this goes too far. It's just my opinion, but I look at the world right now and everything is not everything. So much is divisive. Politically, everything divides, and it's in that division comes when people make up their mind that they have the ultimate answer and they want to convince everybody else or be mad at the people that don't agree with them. And in my opinion, that determination to be right, it just comes from fear. It just comes from fear. And I feel like if we can not be afraid of not having the answers and not always knowing, it's a long trip to get there because the world wants to feed us a bunch of stuff every day about fear. It doesn't matter if it's the news or religion or certain people or whatever. It's like living in a world without fear is such a different world than the JW world. And it's such a far trip to get away from that.
Fear is their marketing campaign. Are you kidding me? It's called fear porn. It's like everyone's afraid of dying every single day, talking about death and destruction. It's awful. And it's quite peaceful to be on this side. And that's what we're trying to help people find, is that peace. I was talking to someone the other day and they said, can you imagine if they took away the shunning, how many people actually would stop going? The increasing number of PMOs. For those who are new to my channel, PMOs are physically in and mentally out. Tell me about your book. Where can we find it? Where can we locate you? And if someone wanted to reach out to you, would you be open to that, to have a discussion with someone who sees themselves in your story?
My book is called Free Will. I have a channel where I read my book audibly. So if you want to hear my commentary or just listen to it. So I'm kind of glad I was able to put it out audibly because the world's kind of a little crazy right now. It's hard for me to sit down and read for like I used to for hours at a time. I'm always kind of moving. So it's nice to have the audible version.
We're going to put your links in the description box. And for those of you who haven't read her book yet, you're going to love this book. And Jill, we are so excited to have you on here. We would love to have you back again. And most importantly, thank you for telling your story. It takes courage to go out publicly, especially as a woman in a patriarchal organization, to come out and say what you have gone through.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I agree 100%. I think I don't really feel brave from telling my story because it's like, I feel like they've already taken anything that they can take, they have no power here anymore. So if I want to tell my story, I'm telling my story. Okay.
If you can go back to talk to Jill about 12 years ago when you first left, because she's in our audience, what would you say to her, to that mom, to that wife who's just ruminating? What would you say to her?
I would say a few things. It's going to get better. Time heals. Don't be afraid to have fun. I think you do need to process your pain, and you need to, like I talked about earlier, having a ceremony, creating your own ritual, write, go to therapy, do all those things that are going to feed your soul and have fun. Like that's huge to me because I feel like I was having a lot of fun as a witness at the end because I wasn't a very busy witness. Everything in life, when you're a witness, everything in life is dictated by those parameters and those tight things. And so I had to just like rip off the Band-Aid and just go, yeah, we're doing this. I don't believe it anymore. We're doing this. Sorry. The organization has taken away the people we love in so many ways. So then are we going to sit in our room and just feel sorry for ourselves or be sad about the people that forever? No, we can't do that forever. Go do some fun stuff. Go have fun. It's important to go, you're going through a terrible time of loss and everything, but find an excuse to laugh as often as you can. You'll get through it.
It's like what we say about indoctrination. Obviously, indoctrination is small steps over a period of time, right? And so deconstruction and unraveling, same exact thing, right? Small steps over a period of time. And sometimes when
Yes.
we don't believe it anymore, we think, that's it. I want this out of my mind. I want the indoctrination out. I want the religion out. And that's it. I want to be different now. And it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that. Just have fun. Just look for ways to laugh. Look for ways to enjoy your life. Look for ways to enjoy things and maybe get a different perspective on things that you didn't actually look at it that way beforehand. I love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Oh, thank
offering
you.
that advice to moms and women and dads in the audience who are feeling this way. On behalf of everybody, thank you so much for speaking out. It really means a lot to all of us.
I so value all the YouTubers that are out there, but the vast majority that are having a ton of people watching them are guys. And
Guys,
wonderful for them. They're awesome guys. It's amazing information. But I think as women coming out of this organization, it's another layer that we need to kind of peel away, is how, you know, it's really, you don't realize how you're holding the male figure up on a pedestal. I love men. I have a
I
son
get
that is
it.
an amazing man,
Of
I
course,
love
yes.
him. It's not anti-man by any means, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I think that the female voices, we really need and that was another thing that made me want to do YouTube. Just like, there needs to be more women out there talking and actually being seen by a lot of the people that are coming out, because it's nice to hear a story like you were talking about earlier that you relate to. You're not going to have everything exactly the same, but it's really nice to hear a woman's perspective, and
Mhm.
how that's another thing that's so freeing, is not having this misogynistic kind of group hovering over you at all
You
times.
know what's interesting too is when a couple, I've spoken to a numerous amount of PMO elders and a couple of men who have left the organization, their view of women on the outside of the organization is so dramatically different. It's refreshing. I get so much encouragement from men leaving the organization because they saw and experienced the patriarchal society in there. They're stripping themselves away of misogynistic viewpoints. So all the
Mhm.
more so, there's so many men who are encouraging the women to speak out as well. And interestingly, even when I first left, my counselor was a man, because I came from this, I need to tell the elders everything. The elders rule me, my husband and even my brother, like everybody is in charge of Wendi. And so then I brought that mentality into the behaviors of my life. Even in relationships, I would bring dysfunction into my relationships. And I was so insecure and needed external validation. And now, because I've spoken out about it, I know that I literally am not the only woman who had felt that. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank
It's
you.
we're doing a movement here. That's what I think's going on. If you want to read her book, it's linked in the description box. Please go out and get it and support one of our fellow women who have overcome some serious adversity. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you so much for watching the show. As you can see, Jill is just, oh my gosh, she's just the kind of person, like I just want to have her in my back pocket. If you want to be on the show, you can email me at wendirenay@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, wendirenay.com, click tell your story, and that'll bring you right to the scheduling app. If you have a skill or a service that you'd like to offer our audience, you can also come on the show and talk about it. I love to have people come on and promote themselves. If you've written a book, if you started a new business, anything with effort to help people coming out from the clutches that is high control religion and narcissistic abuse, we want to hear about it. We'll see you next time.